Welcome to Fringe Pop 321, the show that believes the world is stranger than we think, but thinking should not be strange. You know, there's a lot about Jesus, pro and con, serious and silly, on the internet. One of the odder discussions you'll find is about the name Jesus itself. Some people, no doubt a pretty small number, believe that the name Jesus derives from the name of the lead Greek deity, Zeus. Just think about it. Jesus, Zeus. Now that produces a pretty odd argument, an odd debate. Some people who actually embrace Jesus as Messiah believe that Jesus should never be spoken or used by anyone who embraces the carpenter from Nazareth as God in the flesh, the Savior of the world. To label him Jesus is to commit blasphemy because that name belongs to a pagan god. Now, is that idea coherent? Should Christians not use the name Jesus when referring to their Savior? Well, let's find out. Now, it doesn't take a linguist to suspect that there's something amiss with the idea that Jesus comes from Zeus. Anyone who knows more than one language or who has studied another language long enough, anyway, to pick up some basic words will understand that just because words in two languages sound the same does not mean that they have the same meaning or that one derives from the other. For example, the word in English, gift, has a sound equivalent in Norwegian that means poison. In Dutch, rooster refers to a schedule. The word fart sounds the same in English and Swedish, but means speed in Swedish. Now, examples of this could run into the thousands. While illustrating the premise of this idea is deeply flawed is pretty easy, we need to unpack the controversy a little bit more. Let's start with some textual evidence. As the New Testament makes abundantly clear, Jesus was Jewish. Jews in the 1st century AD spoke Aramaic, a Semitic language closely related to Hebrew, the language of the Jewish Bible, what we call the Old Testament. Now, Jesus' 1st century Hebrew Aramaic name was Yeshua, which is a shortened form of Yehoshua, Joshua in English Bibles. English analogies for this sort of thing would be Mike for Michael or Pat for Patrick. So where does Jesus come from as opposed to Yeshua? Well, the answer to that is the Septuagint, which is the Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible, again, what we think of as the Old Testament. The Jewish translators of the Septuagint rendered the name Yeshua or Yehoshua as Jesus in Greek. Again, that's where we get Jesus from. Now listen to that Greek name again, Jesus. Does it begin with a long E sound, like E as in T-H-E-Y, they, Jesus, or does it begin with a Y sound? Now, Jesus' Aramaic or Hebrew name began with a Y consonant, Yeshua. But Greek does not have a letter that makes the consonant Y sound with which we're familiar. So what to do? What would they do with the Aramaic Hebrew Y in Yeshua? The closest equivalent in Greek was the letter iota, iota. It looks like a capital or a small I. Now, if you say that letter name fast a few times, you'll notice that it starts to sound like iota, 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 iota. So the Greek I can sound like a Y, depending on your pronunciation. Now, like English, Y can have a consonant sound, y, as in the sound at the beginning of the word yes, or a long E sound, like when Y is at the end of an English word like happy. You get both sounds. Iota was therefore the choice in Greek for the first letter of Yeshua, Yehoshua. Now, if you look at this chart, the rest of the name Jesus has a long E sound, that's the Greek letter eta, and two S letters in Greek. Both S letters are the same, they're sigma, even though they're written, the script is different. Now, none of this corresponds to Zeus, even though it sort of almost sounds the same to our ear. Zeus begins with an entirely different letter, the zeta letter. It has no middle S, like in Jesus, which has two S sounds. Zeus has only one at the end because the first letter is the letter Z, zeta. In fact, if you actually look at them side by side, Greek Zeus and Jesus share only one letter, and that's the last one, the ending S. Now, the idea that Jesus and Zeus are either related or one derives from the other isn't based on the letters. We just talked about that. The myth is really derived from sound similarities. As we saw earlier with modern examples, English to Norwegian to Swedish and Dutch, words in different languages can sound the same and have no relationship at all. The same is true for words within a single language. Let's use English as an example. The word bored, B-O-R-E-D, and board, B-O-A-R-D, sound exactly the same in English, and they even share some letters. But one word doesn't derive from the other, and they obviously don't mean the same thing. Words that sound the same, but which have no relationship, are called homophones. There are numerous examples in English. Aloud, A-L-O-U-D, and allowed, A-L-L-O-W-E-D. Again, they sound exactly the same, spelled differently, and certainly don't mean the same thing, and one does not derive from the other. The English word pray, P-R-A-Y versus P-R-E-Y, is another example. And how about the little preposition to, T-O, and then you align that with T-O-O and T-W-O. There you have three that sound exactly the same, but there's no relationship in meaning between them or derivation. Even words that can match completely every letter within a language cannot be understood as being related. These are called homographs, words spelled exactly the same way, but entirely different in meaning. A really good English example is B-A-S-S. That could be bass, as in a fish, or bass, a low-pitched sound. Now, the end result of all this is that the idea that the name Jesus is somehow derived from the name Zeus is hopelessly wrong. If you're a Christian, feel free to use the name Jesus. If you're a clear-thinking person, feel free to use the name Jesus. There's no problem here with some sort of pagan association. Thanks for watching Fringe Pop. Please visit our YouTube channel and watch more episodes, and of course visit the website not only for this episode, but also previous episodes. If you'd like to support what we're doing at Fringe Pop, please visit our Patreon page at www.patreon.com/FringePop321. And remember, what you know may not be so.